Over to Dr. Miles, and he's going to start us off.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to welcome you to tonight's work session as we talk about back-to-school processes once again. To begin this evening, we're going to ask Carmen Harris and Jamie Smith to come forward to talk just a little bit about special education services for our students. Just want the board to have an understanding of what those will look like.
Thank you for having me tonight. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk just a little bit about what the reentry guidance is looking like from special school district and what that would look like with Rockwood. So here we have some specific links that will show you a little bit more about return to school guidance from special school district, our specific guidance for distance learning, what things are looking like for South Technical High School, which many of our students attend, and then our guidance for homebound services. So these are all resources available on the SSD website. As you know, they had made a board decision on Monday to go ahead and move toward all virtual for SSD. And we have been supporting many of our families who have had some questions about that and what that means for receiving special education services in a partner district. And we continue to remind our families that we are, in fact, providing the services according to our partner districts. And we will support whatever mode our partner districts will utilize for their learning for the next year. Next slide. There are specific roles and responsibilities for each of the special education administrators that I would want you to know. The special education director, myself, Jamie, and Dr. Cobb will be working together to problem solve specific situations associated with special education. Weekly communication and meeting with my special education administrators weekly. Your special education building administrators will be available for office hours throughout various times of the week. We'll also have our effective practice specialists supporting, checking in with new teachers daily, and we'll be meeting with teachers no more than once a week outside of the instructional day. In terms of the roles and what that will look like for our special educators, our teachers will collaborate with our general education teachers to provide that support. If we have students who are receiving general education, instruction in the general education setting in a co-taught classroom, and we'll be supporting the students with finishing their expected assignments and goal attainment as per their IEP goals. For the resource in the self-contained classroom, special education teachers will be providing weekly activities for them and live virtual sessions that are based on the curriculum area and the IEP that support their learning. We'll also be having office hours available throughout the week for us to support students in other ways. What we'll be working off of is a distance learning plan, and I think that may have been one of the questions that was posed, is that do we need to change the IEPs to meet the minutes? And at this point, we will not be changing IEPs. The guidance that we're receiving is that each student needs to have a distance learning plan. And that distance learning plan will outline what their services will look like in a reduced capacity model or in an online model. The plan's reviewed and potentially revised every other week. The assignment completion is monitored, graded, feedback is given. And for students who typically receive 5 days a week of services, we would have asynchronous learning activities, as well as 3 live group lessons for those students who are participating online only. Here you have some guidance for special education virtual learning sessions. There were some questions about this in the spring in terms of what does this mean and how do you interpret this chart. So this is truly intended to be guidance and providing some minimum and maximum supports in terms of how much time could you have synchronous learning with a child with special needs. So this outlines that pre-K through 9 through 12. And gives you a little bit of the sustained recommended length of learning that we'd have with our students. For our options that we would be providing for our Rockwood families, they may choose to receive their special education services virtually or in person. So if families choose to receive the in-person special education services, they could potentially have their services provided to them in person Tuesday through Friday. So you could potentially attend, if you were in the hybrid model, you could attend on your non-attendance days to receive your special education services in person. Additional resources that we would provide are academic and related services. There's a toolkit that's available for anyone that does not have to be associated with SSD. Supports for general education as well. And then we have a number of resources for our families that help them through Zoom. What is a distance learning plan? How will your staff be supporting you? And the changes that they'll see from spring into the fall. They did ask that I include a disclaimer for you that we continue to provide updates as required. Our guidance plans may be subject to change. We do have evolving information coming in, and that as often as needed, please contact me for any additional information or support. Can I answer any?
Few questions from the board.
Tammy?
Amy, why don't you come
Since the learning
closer?
plan-
So you're delivering the DLP and Tuesday through Friday, but the student only comes Tuesday and Thursday. Do the parents provide transportation? Because they wouldn't be in our schools on Wednesday and Friday.
Is correct.
So that'd be very clear to parents that that's their responsibility to get the students there just for that period of time.
Correct.
Okay.
Other questions?
Would the parents be reimbursed for their transportation, getting their students to that special education session?
This time, that's not been a discussion that we've had, but I could certainly bring that question back to special.
Okay, that wait time is good enough. Thank you so much. I appreciate that insight. I want to begin a sort of a question now, and we can pass around the microphone. I know that our principals were actively engaged in sort of gathering the registration information, and we're putting together staffing plans. Just want to ask Dr. Counts and Dr. Rebele to share any insights with the board about the progress, challenges that you've faced as a result of some of those planning processes.
Sure. At some point, Glenn, are you going over data? Is that part of this work session? Are we going over specific numbers? Okay, I'll talk in generalities then from our work sessions today with building administrators. So Dr. Rebele and I, Shelley Willott, Glenn was there with us as well, met with administrators grades 6 through 12, 2 different sessions because their needs are different as you look at master scheduling. And what we did is we took the breakdown of students, families that wanted all online education for the fall, and then those families that selected the hybrid. And I think it's worth clarifying that the task before us in this model is really offering 2 separate educational models, 2 separate delivery models. So we really are trying to take our existing student population and transform that into 2 separate schooling opportunities. So you would have an online component for those families that chose totally online, or you would have your 2-day-a-week hybrid in-school, in-person model. So as we started to do this, I'll take the high school example to start with because that was the most complicated. We have about 1,800 high school students who have selected all online. So 1,800 students really is a whole school, right? 1,800 kids would make up any high school. So the challenge there then is to pull those students out, put them in an online model. We have to staff that, so now we need staff for 1,800 students between 4 schools, right? They're not all from one school. So then we have to staff those 1,800 students, and then we have to staff the remainder of our students left in 4 schools with whichever staff are remaining. So it's becoming a really complex scenario. Our principals right now are putting pencil to paper and trying to drill down to individual courses because, of course, in a high school course catalog, there's, I don't know how many offerings. I know 300. Thank you, Shelley Willott. There's 300 course offerings. So you can imagine the gigantic numbers situation this creates, and taking 300 course offerings. Of those 1,800 kids, how many course offerings do we need to offer? How many staff members do we need to make that happen? So it's really become quite a gargantuan problem. And I'm gonna pass the ball to Katie because she's gonna fill in the things that I know I've missed a lot of them.
You did an excellent job. But to complicate that issue is the staffing piece. So in addition to the student selection and to the students' courses that they want, I don't know if it's possible for every course to be recreated in person and online, because the hybrid is really two separate school delivery models. To complicate it, we also have teachers or staff that can't return or want to return in a virtual capacity because of being at risk for a health issue. That staff might not directly match where the need is. So for instance, a Marquette High School may have, and they do have, the highest number of online coursework, but the teacher that needs to teach that class for a health condition is at Eureka High School. So the Eureka teacher, hypothetically, could move into this new virtual school, but we would then have to move a Marquette teacher to Eureka High School. So there's so many ramifications in staffing, because it isn't, if we create this virtual environment at the same time trying to deliver an in-person hybrid environment, we have to consider those staffing. Likewise, it's far simpler, still very complicated at the middle school for the same parameters, and then less complicated at the elementary school, because as you know, every student takes first grade and every student takes second grade, and they're with their teacher all day. So it is less complicated at the elementary school, but we hypothetically, and we have really worked hard to dig into those numbers, we'll have groups of students online who are Fairway students. I have a fifth grader at Fairway, but have a Blevins teacher. So it's not anybody they know, it's not in their school community, because of the staffing, the way staffing works. So it is a very complicated method. If we were truly just a hybrid system where all 22,000 kids were in hybrid, that would be far simpler to staff than trying to have two parallel systems with the same staffing. So you may consider, we'll add more staff. We'll add some staff to this position, to this school. There's a difficulty with that too, because a lot of these classes are the AP chemistry or the AP U.S. government, were the ones we were talking about today. Those are very difficult to find positions that require specific certifications. So we would have difficulty even if we had the ability to add more staff.
Questions from the board? Really about any topic, all the way from Adventure Club to early childhood to online curriculum development. The floor is open.
Katie, with the staffing situation, and teachers are opting out for next year because of COVID-19, is there any way we would have enough teachers to cover everything?
You know, we're not going to know until that first day of school, but we have a sub shortage nationally prior to COVID. So if we don't have the teachers in the classroom, we then rely on, and we're so blessed in Rockwood to have high quality sub pool that a lot of them are certified. Our sub pool has been greatly diminished. So until we go on the first day of school, it's very difficult. But in my assessment, no, I do think we're going to have open spots where teachers will not be able to come because of health conditions or childcare issues, and we don't have a sub to backfill that position.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Couldn't we just started trying to do all this in the last couple of days because we were waiting on the results from parents to choose whether they wanted online or in school? Is that right? We've been working on this, but we really couldn't finalize anything until the last couple of days?
Correct. So we, as you know, put out the registration form. So we asked every parent to complete that for every child. So if you were a 3-child household, you completed 3 registration forms, right? So yes, we just got the complete data back 2 days ago. So we have been feverishly looking at that. Actually, all along the way, the data department has been spectacular. Carl Weinrich, Glenn Hancock, many others have helped us that we've been able to observe that data coming in day by day, but of course it changes hourly. So really we've just got numbers that we can start to work with in the last 2 days. And so that's where when we sat down today as a group of middle school folks and a group of high school folks to sort out the numbers and see where our enrollment fell, we realized this gigantic puzzle of how do we staff a robust online curriculum and how do we staff a robust in-school curriculum with the number of offerings we have and the numbers of students that we're talking about in the various buildings.
You mentioned the middle school, high school. In looking at that data, there's some inequities also in the elementary where you have some elementaries that were very heavy virtual.
Correct.
Would there be an imbalance where some teachers are going to have to shift schools there too? Is that not true?
Again, elementary is a different staffing model because you're right. There are schools that are 50% online
Right.
in the elementary school, but for the most part, those can be within the 4th grade or the 5th grade team at that school for the
You
most
shift
part.
grades, et cetera, but not, okay.
Yeah, we may have a teacher. You're correct. We may have a teacher who, because of a health condition, would require an online position or a virtual position, and they may currently be teaching 2nd grade, but the position may be in 5th grade. So
Right.
we would absolutely maybe have teachers switching grade levels, weeks before school, which is very difficult for a teacher. I know they devote countless
They have to
hours in the
shift
summer.
between schools though, like maybe a Bowles teacher
It's
teaching
possible.
at Utah?
Yeah, not as likely, but it is possible. It's more possible to be within the homeschool
Okay.
per se, and that's something we're trying our best to. Within, we want to keep students on the. We do keep students in the forefront of our mind, and we know that it'd be very difficult for a child to have a teacher from another school and complicated for that child.
So Willard, for the curriculums, what are the similarities between online and in-person curriculums, and what are the differences?
It is the same curriculum delivered, it's just in 2 different ways.
Good, thank you. Mike Seppi, welcome.
That's pretty random.
What's the game plan for Adventure Club?
Good to see you. We are in a place where we would have the ability in a hybrid setting to offer, let's kind of break this down first into the 2 days of attendance. We could offer the traditional before and after school care program for the students that are actually attending school that day. And then we have an option for the other 3 days of the week that would be fully virtual, to provide an option for those students as well. It would be a lower number on those full days because essentially what we have done is we've worked with each elementary school to identify a space within the school for those full day students, but the number of students allowed in the program for full day would be dependent on several factors, staffing, county guidelines, and the space that we have. So one school may have a larger space than another, so it wouldn't necessarily be the same number of spaces available in the full day setting by school, but we do have, from a structural standpoint, we can deliver both a before and after care model as well as a full day model.
What would you do on Monday, the day that nobody's in school?
Great question. We would treat that like a normal, what we call now a non-school day. So think spring break. What we essentially do is we condense down into, say, 4 or 5 locations. In fact, it's what we've been doing since June 15th here in the district for summer care. So we would then collapse all of our staff into those X number of sites, and students would be able to attend a site that way. It would not be at each home school on Mondays.
You feel you're fine the staffing to take care of this, or some staffing members say it's not worth it?
That's a great question. So as you know, we're always hiring. So if anyone knows, we're always hiring. Send them our way. However, What we do know is that each of the 19 elementary schools typically have at least 2 full-time childcare staff, the facilitator and the assistant facilitator. And so as we looked at how this can work, because I know there are some questions sometimes about how can the childcare run if we're not in a 5-day setting. Well, we have a dedicated childcare staff separate that is ready to go. So it's not utilizing the teaching staff. We have, because Rockwood has the ability to offer childcare in-house, we have that staffing ready to go. In addition, the county is currently allowing childcare programs to operate. There are certainly guidelines that we have to follow, and we continue to do that. What we would utilize is our current full-time staff. We've also solicited all of our part-time staff to find out their availability during the day, because we already know their availability for the before and after care setting. And so we do anticipate that we would be able to provide staff. It's always a question of the total amount, as I mentioned before, especially in that full day setting, is dependent on the space that we have access to, as well as the staffing that is available. So I guess to answer your question is, we can provide care at every school. The total number of seats might vary by school.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but since you're going 2 days, those kids are half of the total number you would normally have.
That's right.
So does that provide you adequate space to do the 6 feet apart social distancing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Remember, in the before and after care environment, we have access to a lot more space in the school. So whether that's the cafeteria, the gym, the field, we can absolutely, we think that for those Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, my days are backwards. We think that for the in-person days, we would be able to immediately have about 48 slots per school based on the current staff we have. May be able to have more than that. Now, for those that are staying if they would come full day, likely, I'm guessing, again, it's all space dependent, it might be about 12, 15 per site. Which, if you extrapolate that out over 19 sites, is almost 300 kids. So it is a significant number, even though the number doesn't sound very significant in a full-day environment by individual school.
Would you also allow parents who have to go back to work full-time, let their kids come in on the days they're not supposed to? What's the status of that?
Are you asking about when their child's doing the full-day virtual? Like,
No.
in the hybrid model, everything I've talked about is for children who have selected the hybrid model. We have not had any discussion about families who have only selected online only.
Okay, yeah, but I was thinking about those parents that on the days their kids are not in school, can they do Adventure Club before and after?
Yes, so what we would do, and those were the ones I was talking about, the full days, so on their 2 non-Monday, but the other 2 full days, they can come full day, and what we would do in the morning for before and after, because we have access to more space, we can keep separate the kids who are in person that day from the kids who would be there full day. So we wouldn't need to mix the kids on those Tuesday through Friday days.
You haven't run an all-day Adventure Club yet, have you?
A few years ago, before kindergarten went full day, we used to offer a full day kindergarten program, so students who took kindergarten half a day had the option to sign up for a half day Adventure Club kindergarten program. So we have had experience running a full day program in the past.
Never mind, I can't remember what I was going to say. Let me move back to Laura. Laura, what are you getting feedback from the teachers in regards to school this year?
We have mixed feelings. I sent out a survey a few weeks ago to kind of gauge where our teachers were at. The majority of teachers, it's a small majority, but a majority of our teachers did not feel comfortable with any kind of in-person return. Obviously, their safety, health, wellness is their priority right now, and so there's a lot of fear and nervousness about in-person return. Those that are more open to the idea of in-person return have a lot of questions about safety and protocols and practices and how do we ensure safety for themselves, but also for the students. And when the students go home, how do we just make sure everybody comes to a safe environment and leaves healthy?
You said a majority. Is that 51%, 60, 70, 80? Did you get that?
We were close to 52% that preferred the remote environment at that time. Again, 2 weeks ago, I would anticipate that number probably has increased a little because the nervousness in the world has kind of gone up a little after the last couple of weeks.
You tell your teachers that come to you and say, I'm compromised, there's no way I can go back to school. What alternatives do I have?
So I have been trying to guide them to Katie, Dr. Rebele, for those conversations to look at what those options might be. Obviously, we have teachers who would like to work and are willing to work, and a virtual model of some sort. I know we have those online positions that will be posted, so we have a lot of teachers ready to kind of put their names in and submit their names for that. Knowing they still will be coming to school, it still is a more isolated environment for them, so they feel more comfortable with that. So that is an option for some, although in speaking to Dr. Rebele, that's not going to be an option for all, just by numbers and by positions. So that is an option, but may not be the best option or the right option or even available to everyone. So they are considering leaves of absences, how to use the FML time and still get paid, or whether they should. They know that they can write a letter and ask the board to consider an unpaid leave for them for an extended period of time. So they're considering all of those things.
If you were doing that staffing of the teachers that want the virtual, how would you do it? First come, first serve? Those compromised? Or if I like you, you're in?
I don't really know that I would know how to handle that. I do feel like a consideration for people with medical conditions that put them in a compromised state, if we can accommodate that, I think that serves us best, because then it keeps good teachers in the pool, where we're already going to have maybe a problem with staffing overall. So we're not pushing teachers to choose to step away for a time, and we can still have great people in roles here.
You're talking about the anxiety. Is that because of COVID-19 or because they're going to school working, or they're working and their kids are at home?
Mostly the safety, the health. Knowing that the infection rates in St. Louis County have surged a little over the last couple of weeks, causes them some pause in wondering what that might mean for potential spread or transmission within our schools, and how safe we can be under those conditions. So there's a lot that we're doing in-house to protect our teachers and keep them safe, but there's just some pieces that we can't control, and those are the pieces that are causing some angst.
Dr. Harris, can you explain once again the procedures you're going to use for the hybrid model?
Say that one more time.
What procedures are you going to use for the hybrid model?
In terms of counseling, social workers, therapists, drug-free, all those areas.
Everything.
Yeah. So basically, for us, we will have our counselors contact the families who are virtual, set up a plan with them to make sure we're meeting their social emotional needs. For therapists, it doesn't matter if we go hybrid or virtual. We're prepared to do home visits. We're prepared to work with transportation, the VIC office, as well as our food services people to continue serving kids. So our plan is very similar to what we did in March. We're prepared either way to make sure we're meeting the social emotional needs of kids. And I would say that to date, our counselors and social workers and therapists have been in contact with families. So those families who are really worried and concerned, we've already been in contact with them. We've received many emails about school supply list and all those different things. So we're working with those individual families and schools.
Let me switch to Deborah real quick. Deborah, have you kind of worked out where every student has a computer?
We do. We do. We're in the process of distributing. Bob and his team have recently had 6th grade Chromebook pickup through a scheduled process. And they're going to be doing that with elementary students for new and for the kindergarten students, and for any students who did not choose to come and get a device in the spring. They will get one at that time also. And so they'll be scheduling to limit the people coming in at one time. We've also figured out technical support, how we're going to run that, and internet access for our families without. We do have some challenging areas, and we've actually engaged a couple of vendors, people here in the district to help us problem solve for those specific challenges that we're going to face with a few families. But we're going to figure it out.
So we do have some in the county that do not have Wi-Fi access or internet access.
Correct. Particularly the far west and far southwest of the area. Out towards the Black Madonna Shrine, out towards the county line. And it's not really, there's just no towers, there's no signal. They don't have Charter or AT&T can't run lines out there yet. Wildwood is working on that, but they're telling me that's a 3-year project.
What about our students from St. Louis?
The students from St. Louis are well covered. We worked with Terry's team in the spring, and they still have their devices. For anyone who didn't get a device or who maybe signed up for the Charter or AT&T services that were for the spring only, we are collecting that information right now, and we will be distributing another round of hotspots soon. We're just trying to get all of that information together. St. Louis County Library has the mobile initiative, digital equity initiative, and we're going to try and participate in that as well.
Thank you. I'll yield the floor. I'm sorry.
Do you have one more?
Yeah, I got one for Deborah.
Okay, just wait.
Deborah, hold on. Deborah.
Okay, okay.
Are we thinking of maybe taking advantage of the St. Louis County CARES Act for hotspots or Chromebooks?
We're not for the Chromebooks because we have plenty of devices. We are going to submit for the St. Louis County Digital Initiative, Equity Initiative, which is the CARES Act money. That, though, one of the issues is I'm still waiting to hear what vendor they're going to select, because our greatest need right now is out here in the west, far west and southwest, and if it is a vendor that doesn't work out there at all, we may have to find some other options.
Is it feasible maybe to find like the little MiFis, like all the wireless companies have, to have like a MiFi and that's a monthly fee?
That's what we're working with. AT&T right now is one of the vendors. Yeah, we just had a call today with them.
Oh, I have a question for you.
You guys had your chance.
Yeah, you guys had your chance. Paul, on transportation and food. Let's see, what was the other parts of that? Transportation, food, and facilities. What's the status of all those now, please?
Well, they've all performed well during the summers. There's a lot of activities that's gone on in regards to facilities and grounds. So all that has went very well. As you know, our food service operation worked a good portion of the summer providing meals to students while school was out, and they're prepared to go in whatever avenue that the district approaches into the fall session. And the same thing with our transportation department. They're ready to go. At this point, based on the scenarios we're looking at, our bus routes really don't change in that, so there wasn't a lot of revisions that needed to be done within the transportation system. We've been in constant contact with our bus drivers. We're confident that they're ready to go and will serve the district well as we start into the fall semester.
Someone emailed me that they were certain we didn't have enough supplies, such as mask and the lotion, the hand sanitizer. What's the status of all those?
It's a good question. In regards to transportation, bus drivers will be wearing face coverings, and that could either be a mask or a shield. For those drivers that wear glasses, probably a shield's a better option for them, so that's why we're providing that option. Hand sanitizers have been installed on all the buses as the students board the bus. All that has been prepared. We got protocols in place to where the buses will be sprayed in between the tiers and between the AM and PM sessions, so we got a regular schedule planning for that. And the same thing goes in the cafeteria setting. We've got protocols in place as far as for our workers to wear gloves and masks and disinfectant and sanitizing stations and things of that nature.
With the people that are going online, that takes certain students off your buses.
That's correct. In the hybrid situation, and the data that we're getting back, as Lisa mentioned too a couple of days ago, we really see our bus ridership, even in a hybrid, you're splitting it 50-50. So we knew capacity was go down by 50. But I think we're seeing some other things with families selecting the virtual option. It's even going down more than that. And a couple of routes that we looked at that were more heavily capacity type routes that maybe had 60 plus students on the bus, we're looking at some of those when they're coming in the mid-20s. So you're seeing that bus ridership drop, and it's really going to help in the distancing component. Instead of having 2 to a seat, we'll look more closer to 1 to a seat.
I was referring to the supplies a while ago. I was actually talking about, besides the bus drivers, the teachers and the students. This person vowed and declared that we didn't have enough masks and sanitizers and things like that for the teachers and the students. What's the status of that? Because they were on hold.
Yeah, we've got an initial supply of masks and we've got face shields on order as well. We've got a lot of sanitizer items that we've acquired in regards to the solution. In addition, wipes, rubber gloves. Some of this becomes in short supply over a period of time, but we've certainly got enough to get school started. And we're looking every day for opportunities to acquire more bulk quantities, not knowing how long this will go on.
One last question for Glenn. How many people have not replied yet? Because the other day it was almost 400, I think, or more than that. How many have not replied what they want to do? 200? Is that in one certain area, or is it just spread throughout the district?
Glenn, can you make sure you put your mask up when you're speaking? Thank you.
Right around
when you're in
200,
here.
and it is. We have some schools that have 0, some that have a handful. But it's pretty spread out throughout kind of our schools. There was some that were sharing that they are transferring to another school, and so eventually, as they get removed from Infinite Campus in our system, that might lower the number that haven't responded. Also,
In our district or another district?
another district or a private school,
Okay.
or homeschool.
How you gonna get those last 200 in?
I know they've been calling, schools have been calling families, they've been leaving messages, and again, some of these haven't been updated possibly today even. We'll run it here in another hour to see if anything has come off.
Thank you.
Carmen? Carmen, I do have a question. And I think you said this, but I just want to verify if families have chosen the online component, they can bring their
student in again for special education services?
That's correct. So we
Okay.
would prepare services for them online or in person, and the family would have the option of opting in person if they wish.
Their homeschool or to their,
Homeschool.
Carmen, did you say South Tech is strictly online?
Yes, it is.
That's gonna be hard to do, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Jake can handle it.
oh, what are some budget implications for both the hybrid and for the online piece? As far as funding and,
Was the question, what are the financial implications of online versus hybrid? Really, from an ADA standpoint for state funding, there's not a lot of difference because we'll be able to track and submit ADA for attendance under either scenario. When you're virtual, the percentage is a little bit less. We can claim 94%, and our attendance rate typically is a little higher than that. But there's not much of an offset there. When we're all in a virtual setting, then there's some implications there in that some of the services that we provide in regards to community ed and food service and those kind of things where students aren't physically in the building, we don't have those revenue streams come in. So it's not so much the cost, it's the loss of revenue that comes with those programs if we're not within the school building setting.
thank you.
Paul, the online students, are they counted as regular students?
Yes, sir.
For
They're
funding?
accounted for attendance as well. Again, online, for the most part in a typical online setting, DESE's going to allow us to count for a 94% attendance rate.
Okay, thanks.
One follow-up question is for Mike regarding Adventure Club. Are we, you may have said this, and I apologize if you did. I'm assuming that the rooms that we will be providing to staff kids, with staff and kids, will be at a reduced capacity following all the guidelines. Is that correct?
That's, excuse me, that's correct. That's just how we've been operating all summer as well.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that for everybody. And then, Keith, you asked about the equipment and supplies that will be provided. I think you asked about that for teachers as well. How has that been communicated to our teachers and our bus drivers and our staff in terms of the safety precautions and measures that we will have in place regardless of the capacity in our school buildings so that they know what we have planned for them? Oh, whomever wants to answer that. I guess Paul, but it could be if someone else is communicating that.
I can speak to the support services in that a lot of that's been put out on our website as well as far as some of our safety protocols and items that will be required. In addition, Mike Heyman within the Transportation Department has had regular communications with the staff in regards to the PPE items that will be supplied to our bus drivers in regards to mask and sanitizer, first aid type stuff. So that's gone out. I've spoken to Shelley about some things that they're doing within their settings as well, and they've put together a document that outlines a lot of that, and Shelley can speak to that certainly a lot better than I can.
We've put together, we were planning on getting it tomorrow about specific cleaning and sanitizing issues based on specific content. So what to do in a band classroom, what to do in a choir classroom, what to do in a CTE classroom, an art classroom, and that's been going through all the principals this week to take a look at it, and then we're going to get that out to teachers.
We going to try and get students to help with the cleaning after like the last 5 minutes of class or something?
Amy, you have any more?
I guess maybe we need to circle back to Katie and Lisa's comments at the beginning and talk a little bit more about the logistics and things that were talked about today in a little more detail. I don't want to forget the important piece of that conversation and the information that was learned today. And another comment I want to make, just, you know, as we've all been enduring the challenges set in front of us from this pandemic that we are facing, we are hearing all kinds of different voices from community, teachers, parents, and we will have a statement later on about that. But my point in saying all of that is I feel like there are always pieces in the data that do not appear as they seem in the statistics. And what I mean by that is I believe we have a good number of parents who selected the hybrid model for their children because they want their children to remain in the community in which their children reside. So they want to make sure that their students have the teachers in the school and the classmates that they're familiar with. So they may have selected a hybrid model for them, when in reality what they are really hoping for, or kind of assuming we might do, is look at a virtual option. And so, you know, I think looking at exactly what you're saying tonight, Lisa and Katie, in terms of who those teachers will be, how we will find them, how we will set them, how we will have those classes, presents some very big challenges.
Yeah, Jamie, I appreciate that point. That became very clear to us today. Certainly, I can only speak from middle school and high school because those were the two meetings I was in, but it became very clear that, you know, if you are 100% online student, you could possibly have teachers from all 4 high schools. You might have teachers from mostly your home school, but a few other schools. It's not very clean. It's very, very messy. And even our students that would be coming in the hybrid model, the amount of shuffling or movement of staff, because we need to balance those class sizes. We can't overload one content area to make another, you know, another course fit. And so that was a real concern. Our middle schools were very concerned about the team concept and how important that community is in middle school, and to preserve that while running an online model and a hybrid model would be very, very challenging to do. We can do it and we can schedule the kids, but it's going to feel very different. And we know that. I mean, it is a pandemic, so we know we're not schooling like we did last February before March 13th. But we know it will be different, but it just I think that connection piece really overwhelmed a lot of us. You know, watching the faces of administrators and realizing what a drastic change this was going to be, and what schooling would really look like, because we have to divide and conquer our staff to get all these things covered.
Dr. Willott, you said they're using the same curriculum for online and for regular classes.
Correct.
How preparing for those is it different? In the regular class, you go in and you talk to them face to face. In the virtual, what additional things do you have to do?
We have built out recorded lessons for students so that they can access them when they don't have a teacher in front of them. We have built out a design that allows children to navigate it very easily so that they can have some autonomy on that. And we have been working with teachers on the pacing. So one of the challenges we would have with that is keeping our online teachers paced the same as our in-person teachers. And it's doable, but it's going to be a challenge. We're going to have to keep on that so that if students move in and out at quarter or semester, that they are on pace and haven't missed any of the curriculum. So nobody can move anything around in any different order.
Okay.
Well, are you done, Keith?
Good.
Really? Okay. Dr. Willett, could you kind of walk us through what the virtual will look like on a day-to-day basis?
Yes.
What's the instruction that's really going to take place?
So at the elementary level, because the kids are in a classroom with a teacher, they're going to get live Zooms. They're going to get a lot of support from their teacher. They're going to be working throughout the day, both in online and doing some activities away from the computer, like handwriting and specials and all of those things. So they will still have access to those things, and they will have the teacher available doing Zooms with them throughout the day, also running small groups and individual lessons, just like she would in the regular classroom. Middle school and high school will be a little bit different because the teachers are working on a schedule that's built for the seated students. So the virtual students will have the content, they will have recorded lessons, they'll get a daily video from their teacher saying, here's what you need to do for the day, but not necessarily live Zoom lessons because the teacher will be with other children in the classroom that they are working with. They do all get live Zooms on Monday. That's the one day that everybody's live Zooming.
Will the virtual follow the same schedule as the in-school time?
It's not possible if we do a hybrid and an online. So because the teachers are in the classroom with other students, they can't live Zoom with kids. If everybody is online, we have the possibility of following a typical schedule, and the teachers can live Zoom with their kids more frequently on a regular schedule.
Actually, with virtual, there'll be more contact with the students.
Technically, yes, you could see it that way.
Be 5 days a week then with the same?
Yes, because Mondays we would still build in a virtual schedule if everybody were online. We would still use that Monday as scheduled Zooms in the morning. Our teachers could do PD and PLC work in the afternoon, while the kids did asynchronous work in the afternoons.
Tuesday would look like
Normal day.
online.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle it when a family has 3 kids and 1 computer or 2 computers and they're all 3 going virtual?
Every Rockwood student will have a device.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right, they will, won't they?
Yep.
I'm curious to ask Dr. Cobb, Dr. Counts, and Laura Baker, what kind of feedback are you getting from teachers? I already asked Laura, but I'm getting feedback, tons of it, through emails, about they really don't know what's going to happen, and they're scared. What kind of feedback are you two getting? Are you 3 getting?
And can I just add, Dr. Kinder, because I'm sitting here biting my tongue on this, but we've also received emails saying that we don't care about our staff and our teachers. And that's a very painful thing for us to hear. We're getting bombarded from every angle, and that's just a very difficult thing to hear. So I can't sit and not say that, because this board has not shown that in the past, and we're just trying to work through this the best that we can. We can't fix what's happening. We're trying to work through it the best we can.
Yeah, I think people don't realize that 5 of us on the board have teaching degrees, and 4 of us have taught, and 3 of us are still teaching. And I think I tallied it up, and when you add all the years that we've been working, it's about 125 years when you put us all together. So we are teachers at heart. So really, it really does hurt when they say you don't care about teachers, because that's not true.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I would say that the feedback is one that it's the feedback that we're seeing all over in society. We have, our teachers are tremendous, and they all have a story, and all of them want to see kids, all of them want to be with their students, all of them miss their students, and all of them miss going in the classroom and doing what they do best. It comes down to, there's a level of anxiety, there's a level of fear, there's a level of emotion that comes with the times that we're in, and I think that we see that all over the board. So I will say that we're seeing differences on how we return, but I think the consistent thing that we see from teachers is we all want to return. We all want to be with our kids. We all care about our kids. We all love our jobs. There's just little nuances depending on what story that you're in, and you know, depending on, you know, what you bring, whether it's if you have health concerns, or just where you're at. But I will say the consistent message is we care about our kids. We want to come back to our buildings, but they know that that comes with a level of uncertainty, and I think that's what we're dealing with. And so I think it's all over.
Dave, tell us a little bit about the early childhood program as well.
Yeah, so early childhood, as you know, it's a program, and it was already in a reduced capacity. It was already, too many of it was not offered every day of the week. So we did a survey as well, and it looks like we're still running the numbers on that. We'll still be able to have a reduced capacity in the twice a week or 3 days a week. We're looking at our full day programs now. We did get our number back. I think it was close to 60 students. We're looking at online, so we're trying to do the same thing that elementary through high school is doing, which is try to put that that puzzle together.
It's being in a hybrid model, a online model, or
Both, yeah, both. I mean, we would still offer in person, and we would still offer online.
And hey, Jamie, this is Alex Fees. Regarding your question a while ago about communication and employees, much of the information is conveyed via their supervisors. And aside of that, oftentimes we make a story out of some of that for One Rockwood, pushed out on our internal website. And also, just regarding videos, I know we currently have 4 videos scheduled. Curtis and I shot one today with some school nurses, a video basically with nurses welcoming back members of their community, their students and parents. Also, we have a video coming up on a change in the school environment, what that is liable to look like. That's for parents and their children. Also, off days curriculum, that will be very similar to the story that KMOV did a week or so ago. And Curtis and I got together with Mike Heyman and Paul Northington a couple days ago and did a story on school bus transportation and the measures that we will be taking on our school buses, the difficulty of social distancing, and how they will be cleaned and sanitized on a regular basis.
That's really important that our parents.
wait.
What I'm hearing.
Hang on, Jamie. Go ahead.
You ready?
Yeah.
I think that'll all be very helpful for the entire community to see those videos. And to also, I just think we have to be really conscious as we're going through this. I know there are 11 work days remaining weekdays remaining before we are set to see students in schools. And our teachers need to know as much information as possible, because obviously everyone's level of anxiety is very high and elevated right now. And, the most we can do to provide that to them, I think, will help. Reiterating what Laura Lee said, and Keith, we all hear every voice that we have heard thus far, and there is no easy or direct solution to all of this other than we all have to continue to work, no matter what the solution is, to make the best of what we have. And Shelley, can I go back and ask you a couple more questions about teachers' schedules, if it is under a virtual plan?
Mm-hmm.
I think you said Monday would still be somewhat of a PD day, but there would be a check-in day with kids. The other 4 days would be instruction days. Would it be like 2 days of instruction with 2 independent days, or would we see 4 teaching days?
We would have 4 teaching days because we would be able to run a regular schedule with our teachers available to their kids to Zoom during that particular hour, because we wouldn't be pulling kids from everywhere. So the Lafayette kids could Zoom with their Lafayette teachers following their Lafayette schedule.
Would we continue on a quarter schedule?
We would. I think we would, yes, because one of the things we heard was the number of kids to pay attention to and dig into if there's an issue, and the number of classes that kids were juggling at one time. It was a lot. And 7 is a lot to do, especially at the beginning of the year when we're getting routines down, we're trying to figure out how to do online. That's a much more palatable load for everybody.
What about the elementary? Would it be asynchronous on
They would have
Also-
Zooms with their teachers throughout the day, and they would be
So
able to do the same thing.
Thursday through Friday, they would be just like they were in the classroom, only via technology.
Correct.
Okay.
There may be more asynchronous breaks because we wouldn't want kids on the computer that
Exactly.
long.
I also want to commend you for the work that your team has done, and I hear it constantly, the appreciation from the teachers who have had the ability and the administrators to hop on Zooms with you at all hours of the day and night to learn from you and your team and to hear what's going on. I know that there's still a little bit of questions that I've received about Canvas, and so could you talk about, I know you've done some Zooms about that, correct? And
Sure.
How many do you feel like you've reached?
We've done about 5,500 different trainings this summer. So some of those were the same people taking multiple trainings. So I couldn't say that we actually touched every teacher. But last May, our instructional techs reached out to every building principal about doing training on the 4 basic things we're using in Canvas. Got some of those scheduled during their building time. We're offering sessions all summer. We've added more sessions. This was the elementary really heavy hit, and we kept adding more sections to get those teachers that training. To be really clear though, I think that there's a misnomer that people think that we are asking everybody to build original content on Canvas. That's very laborious. It involves a lot of training. That's not what we're asking people to do. We're asking for 4 simple tools within Canvas. So if a teacher uses Google Classroom already, they can link those assignments into Canvas. We're asking that everybody put their assignments in Canvas. We're asking that everybody fill out a pre-made template on how to get a hold of the teacher and the syllabus for the quarter. We're asking everybody to use the inbox so that all kids and parents can communicate with the teacher. And we're asking for, now I gotta think of the 4th one because it just escaped me. Class expectations is on there, yeah. Oh, the calendar. We're asking them to generate the calendar because if they put the assignments on the calendar, to-do list on the right-hand side of the screen for every class that a student takes. So all in one spot. So today these 3 assignments are due for these 3 classes. You need to make sure those are done. So we're asking everybody to use those 4 basic features. It takes about 3 minutes of training on each one. We also have a video series on all of those that we've been pushing out to teachers. So it's totally accessible to them if they haven't attended a training in person.
They're ongoing, they're available at all times. It's
Correct.
not like it's going to go away.
Correct. And then this week we did another sweep of the principals and said, are you sure you don't need us? We're ready to come. And we've had more ask this week to do that when teachers get back.
Shelley, I have a question.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you for talking about all of that.
So if we're doing odd classes first quarter, so just kind of walk me through what that looks like. Let's say we're back in school, I don't know, October or whatever. You know, what does that look like then? Do we maintain that odd schedule? We're just going to keep going with that?
Yes.
So this whole basically first semester is, it's locked into what it is right now currently?
It depends on when that break is. So
Okay.
if it were right at the quarter, we could go ahead, well, we would have to finish up that semester. So yeah. Yeah, because part of the reason we thought about that schedule too was that it makes it much easier to ebb and flow out of various scenarios. So if we had to come back in a reduced capacity, if we had to go all online, it just made the transition to each one of those things that much easier than juggling 7 classes with 7 groups of kids.
Basically, we can assure our parents that it's going to be odd first quarter and it's going to be even second. And that's just, we can tell them for sure that's the way it's going to be, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
I want to come back and say thanks, Alex, because one of the things that we're getting from all these emails and phone calls and text messages is that the public wants to know what it's going to look like. What are we offering? And so getting these videos out is really important as one way to communicate exactly what we're doing. So thanks for getting those out to everybody.
You bet. Thank you, Tamara. The one we did the Curtis and I looked at today is we used some of our high school students. We're showing X's on the floor, arrows, signs on the wall, things of that nature, showing what social distancing might look like in classrooms, also in cafeterias. You know, the school bus transportation video, Mike and Paul went into great detail about the efforts they're making on a daily basis, multiple times a day to sanitize, things of that nature.
On the online and the virtual, the teachers would come into the school building, go into their classroom, they would, what's the word I'm looking for here? Transmit over, is that the right word? From their school building, so
Yes.
so they could then connect with their peers.
Mm-hmm. That's what we've talked about so far.
One more thing with the virtual, they would be able to, since we'd be using Zoom, correct?
Yes.
They would be able to break them out into small groups through breakouts, so they could
Yeah.
do some small group work with.
Absolutely.
So there's again more contact for the students.
Correct.
To feel like they're really part of that community.
Yes.
Look, I was thinking of the example for the end school. I'm going to take Marquette. It's the largest school. There's 2,200 kids. If you go split, that's 1,100 each 2 days. And Glenn, in Marquette, we have what percentage decided to go virtual? 40%. So you take out another 20% each session, because that would total up to your 40%. Then you're down to about 800 students. And I know Marquette can handle 800 students, because when it opened in 1993, it opened with 1,000 students. And we didn't even use the third floor. It wasn't finished yet. So we had the 2 floors. And since then, they've added a lot. But the problem is not the classroom space and inside the classroom. The problem is between classes and in the hallways, no matter what the size of the school, whether it's 800, 700, 1,200, or whatever. Whoever's working on that, has those compensations been worked on to be taken care of?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. That has been a topic, and in all of our schools, high schools and middle school too. I haven't been to all the middle schools, but I've been to almost all the high schools, and they have their commons set up in a way. In fact, one school was giving me an example last night when I was checking in. Dave and I both have been checking in with principals pretty much daily, and the example was that the first day that the students are in session, and it's lunchtime, kind of go back to the elementary days that you could sit where you want, but once you sit there, and we have, 3 people to a table, that's going to be your seat. And so, Lisa Counts would sit at that table, at that seat with her 2 buddies, so that we have a better way of keeping kids separated that way, and also to, prevent that cross contact. A lot of those kinds of procedures in place. You're right, passing time. We've all been in high schools and middle schools during passing times, and it can get a little silly sometimes. So they've talked about alternating dismissal from class, and even by 30 or 45 seconds, and just staggering that. So they would do some of those kinds of things to minimize students in the hallway. The other thing that we will have to do a lot of is common expectations for kiddos, and the expectation is we're all going to have masks on, and we're all going to do our very best to social distance. And so, the days of us just congregating in a big pack of, 12 kids hanging out in the middle of the hallway, we need to keep it moving and things like that. So we're going to have to really reiterate some of those expectations for our students as well.
The lockers, would you still assign lockers? Or
we are not going to assign lockers.
Okay.
And most of our high schoolers weren't using their lockers anyway.
Understand.
Back to the masks, if a student forgets their mask, we have one for the day that they could use.
Correct.
What happens if there's an unruly student that doesn't want to follow a mask protocol at all? What actions are we going to take?
So, and if I missed something, Dave, chime in, because I know you and Jamie and Carmen have been working very closely on this. But yeah, the expectation is that all students, staff, and visitors, although we won't have a lot of visitors, but anyone in our building is expected to wear a mask. If it's a compliance issue that we have a student just don't want to wear it that day, we're of course going to have some conversations with that kiddo and maybe involve their parent and whatnot. It's not really going to be negotiable. We can't decide not to wear a mask any given day. Right now in the registration process, we have accounted for if a parent child has a medical condition or disability in which they believe prevents them from wearing a mask, there's a process to that. And that's where Dave Cobb, Jamie Smith, Carmen Harris have been overseeing that process. But pretty much, you know, the expectation is going to be if you're in our building, you're expected to wear a mask.
Is there like parents, supposed to be appointment only?
Yes. Yeah, we'll ask parents to call if they need to meet with a teacher or a principal.
Those could be by Zoom.
For sure. For sure. We will meet online as much as possible as well, too. Sure.
I have another question for Carmen. Carmen, you sat down, so we didn't have any questions coming to me now. What about community-based instruction?
We're working with our community-based instructional sites to determine what would be appropriate to access and what wouldn't. And then we have kind of tiered interventions of things that we can do inside our buildings if we can't access a site or a particular day or whatever that might be for us. So some of our sites have indicated that they will not be able to support our needs in the fall.
What about sports? MSHSAA has, they put out a directive, and Illinois is moving their sports, football at least, to the spring. Is Missouri going to do that? I know.
I was, if you wanted to pick it up, Dr. Miles, I didn't want to hog the microphone. So right now, just as a day, MSHA has announced that there will for those schools that are all virtual to have the option to compete, but that has to go through the area superintendents, and I understand they will be reviewing and voting on that on Wednesday. So right now, as it stands, the guidelines for MSHA are if you are virtual totally as a school district, no sports or MSHA-sanctioned activities. But again, I think on Wednesday, the superintendents will be reviewing an option to consider participation for those schools and school districts that are in an all-online version.
Hybrid is just like do whatever you want, right?
Yeah, for the schools that were in school in any capacity, they would carry on sports as usual.
And Dr. Counts, you had circulated that message with activities directors today, and we are sending that out tomorrow, correct?
That is on hold right now because we're
Hold.
still kind of reviewing that, yeah.
I think this question might be for Dr. Miles. If there's a positive, what's the protocol, and then how many positives will shut down the school and for how long? And then if one school shuts down, will the rest follow?
Likely we would close by site as needed. So I have a direct contact with Dr. Spring Schmidt, who is the acting director of the St. Louis County Department of Public Health. We would make an immediate call to her. We'll have contact tracers trained at each of our buildings to assist with that process, and we'll work with the St. Louis County Department of Public Health, because if we have a positive test, that individual may only return to the school building once released from the St. Louis County Department of Public Health.
Okay, so how about a motion that the Board of Education recess the meeting until 7 p.m. when the meeting will be called to order in open session?
Move.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, can we have a roll call? Or do we need a roll call? All right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. All right, see you all at 7. All right, welcome everyone. We're going to start with, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Move. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Next, we need a motion to approve the Board of Education meeting minutes for July 20th, 2020.
Move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Next, we're going to have patron comments. So we have a few patron comments tonight, and I'm going to read the beginning of this so everybody knows what is expected. First of all, it's not on here, but same as last time, same as every time, we asked that everyone was respectful. We are priding ourselves in trying to make sure that we are listening to everyone, so please be respectful. I'm skipping through some of this. During patron comments, citizens may make a statement or address the board concerning issues pertaining to the Rockwood School District. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The board or the superintendent may seek additional information or clarification from the citizen addressing the board. At the board's discretion, the board, the superintendent, or the administrative staff will either respond immediately to an issue raised in a statement or provide a written response within a reasonable time period. The general practice, however, should be that we will not respond to the concern and we will respond to it at a later time. If a written response is provided, it will be made available to the public in either full text or summarized form upon request. So, we have our very first patron comment is Marjorie Rowling. So if Margie could come forward, please.
Hello. First thing I'd like to say is, once again, there is a selection bias here in who chooses to attend the meeting to make comments in a pandemic. Obviously, people who are more in favor of virtual options are going to be less likely to come out to a crowded situation, such as this one, despite the social distancing and mask requirements. So I do ask that in the future, you consider giving an option for people to give comments not in person. Last board meeting, I spoke in support of the hybrid option. Tonight, I asked the Rockwood School District to follow the recommendations of the St. Louis County Health Department and start the year in as virtual an environment as possible, which is the 100% virtual option for Rockwood. Rockwood does have the capacity to do it, and I think it should. Furthermore, with the recent change in Missouri, you can still have sports even if you go virtual. Basically, schools that have reopened in Tennessee and Georgia have encountered cases, have encountered quarantines, have encountered shutdowns, and anyone saying that going back in person is better for mental health and stability and all of that isn't really taking into account the fact that in a short week, schools are already shutting down. What we're witnessing is the scientific method in action. It was thought at first that kids really don't transmit the disease as well, but even the CDC has recently said, due to the super spreader summer camp situation, that adds to the body of evidence demonstrating that children of all ages are susceptible to SARS-CoV-2 infection and, contrary to early reports, might play an important role in transmission. It used to be thought that children could, especially those under 10, could be viral dead ends. That really doesn't seem to be the case. Right now, hospital admissions are too high in St. Louis County, and the percentage positive is too high to make any in-person learning at this point sensible. In contrast to the flu, where 90% recover in 2 weeks, with COVID, approximately 1/3 are not well within 2 to 3 weeks. This is a terrible thing to ask our teachers to subject themselves to. If every teacher who wanted to teach virtually could, then maybe I could stand and support the hybrid option, but that is simply not the case. And we know that this illness does affect people with pre-existing conditions more than others, but it can strike anyone. It can kill anyone at any time. And Rockwood teachers, there's so many that have dedicated their whole lives, and I really just don't think it's fair to make them guinea pigs in this experiment. The virtual learning is going to be great quality, and we can all do our part to make it work for our children. I didn't do a good job in the spring, I'll own that, and I'm going to do better, and my kids are going to learn, and they're going to thrive, and I just, for the sake of the teachers, the staff, the maintenance workers, I really ask you to go full virtual. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Johanna Bodine.
Hi, I'm Johanna Bodian. Thank you for
welcoming us back again. Thank you for all the work you've done this far in planning to help our kids get back in school. We really appreciate it. Last time I came and spoke, I talked to you about my now 8th grader who has a learning disability and increased his capacity to read 3 grade levels when we came to Rockwood. I'm going to tell you tonight about my 11-year-old who is actually at summer camp. He's out of town right now, but when I spoke to him last night, he was like, "Oh, Mom, I wish I could come with you and I could talk to them because I want them to know how badly I want to go back to school. I need to go back to school." My 11-year-old has ADHD. He's a very intelligent kid, but he needs a very rigorous structure in order to learn, to stay motivated, to stay engaged, and in-person learning is the best way for him to learn. And he recognizes that. I'm really proud of him for recognizing what he needs. And I also wish he could be here to tell you that himself. But there are a couple other things besides Sam's message that I want you to hear tonight, and I want you to really think about. In the 2 weeks since I was here, I've been trying to scour press releases from the health department, from our county executive, any information I can get to find real data. I do believe we should be looking at the data when we make these really important decisions. I have yet to find any specifics from the county health department telling me what it means to go to school safely 5 days, what that plan looks like. I understand that the Jennings superintendent had a really successful summer school course and that the health department had given them approval to do that 5 days a week. That's something I had read. I'm wondering if the school districts are collaborating, sharing those plans, what input the health department is giving, and I'd really like the school district to be able to share some very specific thresholds or metrics so that we as parents understand what it's going to take, what it means to go back. By what yardstick are we measuring this? And then I'd also ask you just to look at the numbers. When I looked, I mean, the numbers aren't there, in my opinion, for us to be staying home doing virtual. Thank you. But we support those who need it.
Thank you. Next is Elizabeth Cohen.
Hi. I am a mother of 3 boys. I have 2 who have graduated from Marquette, and my youngest will be a freshman there. My other 2 are in college currently. Over the last few weeks, I've been honored to become acquainted with several Rockwood parents that I didn't know previously. We all have different children with different needs, yet we all feel the same way, and that's desperate. We're desperate for our school district to provide what we know each of our children needs. We're desperate for our teachers to give our children what we know we can't. We're desperate for Rockwood to be successful in its mission, which says we do whatever it takes to ensure all students realize their potential. Unfortunately, with the current options facing Rockwood parents, you're failing your mission. I'm going to use my son, Josh, who's going to be a freshman at Marquette, as just one example. He's 14, and he'll be taking one of the hardest math classes at Marquette as a freshman. It's Honors Algebra 2 Trigonometry. If you don't know, this is 3 semesters of math, 2 semesters of Algebra 2, and 1 of Trigonometry, compacted into 2 semesters. With the current Rockwood plan of using quarters and dividing up the 7 classes accordingly, he will now need to learn that same class material in 1 semester over 2 quarters. Possibly, I'm assuming, with a break in between. And this is on top of not having really been taught math since March. I've been told by some, he can just retake it. I mean, he's ahead, right? He's ahead in math, so what's it matter? Or he could just go down to a more manageable class. That won't put him behind, And although that is true, I ask you this, is that ensuring that he realizes his potential? The answer is no, it's not. And I'm pretty sure each and every parent who is desperate for Rockwood to be successful in its mission can give you a different personal example of how Rockwood is failing their child. Since I chose math as an example, I'm going to leave you with one more math problem to think about before I leave. Did you know that the hybrid Rockwood model of 2 days a week in person will be offering our students 6.5 hours of instruction 2 days a week plus 2 hours on Monday? Using the Tuesday, Thursday in-person classes, as that's when my son will be there, and referencing the current Rockwood academic calendar, this adds up to 244.5 hours of instruction during the first semester. Did you also know that Missouri State Statute Title 11, Chapter 167, specifically Section 167.031, regarding homeschooling, states that you must offer at least 1,000 hours of instruction in a year, 500 in a semester. According to 167.061, any parent, guardian, or other person having charge, control, or custody of a child who violates the provisions of Section 167.031 is guilty of a Class C misdemeanor, can be fined, imprisoned, or both. So let that sink in. If I homeschool my child and only provide 244.5 hours of instruction, I could literally be put in jail. Given that there are 32 days in the semester I did not account for in my initial math, you'd still need 8 hours of instruction each of those days.
Thank you.
The student will be teaching themselves.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Next is Adam Whittington.
I moved here. I'm from St. Louis. I moved back from Texas. I chose this school district because it was the best school district in the state. I chose to be within Lafayette because when I competed against Lafayette and saw that school, I said, wow, I wish I could go to that school. I packed up my whole family and I moved here because of your reputation. I made a mistake. I made a mistake. The rules you are pushing on our kids are blind statistics. You took surveys from us. You turned your back on those statistics. A majority of the parents wanted to go to school 5 days a week. They want to return to normal for our children. You guys do not care. This is madness when I sit around and look at this. This is socially, I don't know. I sit and watch your faces as these other parents, and you sit there lifelessly and stare. I've seen you take one note. What is your mission? If you're a parent and you look to you for the health of our children, that's not our responsibility as a parent. Health is a decision, is a lifestyle decision. It doesn't just fall on you and you're blessed with it. Safety is what parents teach our kids to act properly. I brought 2 kids. I'm a good parent, I believe. I believe they reflect me. They're loving, they're brave, they're not scared, they're smart, and they're damn good in athletics. If you plan to make kids come to school 2 days a week, and basically all you're going to teach them is how to stay 6 foot apart and wear a mask, are you guys happy? None of you look happy. You should love what you're doing because you're here to make a difference on our children. You sit, it's a lifeless stare. This is crazy. I think it's very honorable of you to give the people that are scared an option virtually. Very honorable. If people are scared, let them be scared, but give them an option. If people aren't scared, let them live our lives. Let the kids have fun. Do you remember being a kid? Remember your first crush? Seeing that boy or girl that you had a crush on and seeing that smile, how that made your day? Kids are going to go to school all day and not see a facial expression? That's, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And if you sit with a straight face, that's crazy. You guys might think I'm crazy, but I've lived my life 41 years. I've been sick. My kids have been sick. You're just peddling fear, and you should be ashamed.
And next is Jason Moore.
Hello, good evening, and thanks for having us and to be able to talk to you all again. So again, my name's Jason Moore. I talked last time around, and I can't keep this darn thing up. And I just wanted to reiterate what I said before, and the need and necessity to get these schools or these kids the option of 5 days in person, ability to join class, to see their friends, to have direct interactions with all of their teachers. It is not healthy to have kids being remote, away from their friends, away from their peers, away from their teachers, learning how to interact with others, and being able to directly interact with teachers on a one-to-one basis through a computer screen isn't effective. I've been work from home since March now. It's awful. It is absolutely atrocious. But having said this, I could speak to numbers, I could speak to the data that is all over the place from the county that's guiding their recommendations to keep things as virtual as possible. And that is gravely concerning as a parent, as a taxpayer. So only thing I'm asking is keep the other options open, because I firmly believe that if you feel best to have your kids be remote 100%, more power to you. God bless you. Same way with the hybrid option. If that's what you want, fine. But for the 5-day option, which a vast majority of parents were actually looking for, that's what we desire. And based on the CDC guide, or the director of the CDC actually is coming out and saying it's healthier for the kids to be back in school. Pediatricians around the country have been saying it's best to keep the kids in school. Psychologically, it is devastating for kids to be away from a social environment. Suicide rates will go up the longer this keeps going, because I was there at that age, severely depressed. God forbid I was ever involved in something of this nature. In closing, all I can say is that Rockwood has always been at the forefront, the leadership of not just the region, but of the state, amongst the best public schools in the country. I ask you to please, I plead with you to please.
Please keep your mask on.
Yeah, I'm trying to. All I ask is continue being the leader. Dr. Miles, you have been nothing but exemplary, and I applaud you for talking to me several times. Keep your leadership. Don't back down the way the other districts have. It's for the best for our kids. Thanks again. God bless, and we'll talk to you later again. So, thank you.
Amber Mueller.
I am Amber Mueller. I'm a Rockwood mom of 3. I brought 2 of my kiddos with me tonight. We are proponents of the 5-day in-school return. That's what we'd ideally like, although at this point I'm joyously excited about 2 days. I'll take what I can get and just ask that we stay with that, but ideally 5. And I'm not going to talk. I'm going to let my 2 kiddos talk. They felt very strongly. They're excited to go back to a certain extent, but still they feel like they're going to be missing a lot. So they just wanted to share their thoughts. I'll step aside, but thank you for all you guys do. I know it's a lot of sleepless nights and hard decisions, and I appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Cameron, and I'm going into 8th grade this year. Last year during the spring, whenever we went in quarantine, it was really hard to work from home due to multiple reasons. Starting with one is whenever we tried to do the Zoom, there was a lot of glitches and lags. And whenever you try that, a lot of times you get kicked from your call. And then like 5 or so minutes when you join back in, you probably missed something important. But you couldn't ask your teacher because she didn't have room in her schedule to answer every kid's question, because she had a lot to teach us in the short hour and a half that she had on the call. Now another problem was that it was really hard because you couldn't communicate with your classmates. You couldn't ask them hey, what did she say about this, or how did he tell me how to do this problem? So you couldn't have any interactions with people. Another hard thing was just spending the whole time at home, just sitting in your room or at your desk or wherever, and just on your computer. You wouldn't really be able to like interact with people, and you just sat there and just listened to the teacher talk about whatever subject. Whenever, for example of how hard it was at home, I'd taken art as a second semester encore. Whenever we were in school, we did stuff like build like clay models or make like something out of like paper. But at home, all our art teacher just had us do was like draw something for the day. And that's what it was like for all the classes. We barely got to do anything. It was also hard because you didn't have any classmates. You couldn't talk to your friends. You couldn't have group projects. You couldn't go to lunch and just talk about whatever you wanted to talk about. You were stuck at home looking at a screen all day. If we actually go to school, we will be able to succeed and learn compared to going at home. That's all I got.
Hi, my name is Carson Mueller, and I'm going into 4th grade. In the spring, I had a hard time learning from home. For example, at school, it takes me 2 days to learn a subject. Online, it takes me 2 weeks. Plus, kids need to be with kids and learn from teachers, not moms. Another reason why we should go to school is because sickness can't hold us back forever. At one point, we're going to have to open up the door and face it, and we deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Next is Beth Fitzgerald.
Good evening. So first of all, I'd like to say that I'm so happy to hear that the majority of teachers are really excited to come back and want to be with their students. And I think all of us who care about children know the importance of children being able to be in the classroom, and that it's so much better for their mental health and for their cognitive development. And that is why the CDC and pediatricians are all recommending that children go back. And so, you know, I also am so thankful that you had Adventure Club this summer, and I understand your Adventure Club has been very successful. Summer camps around the region have been very successful, and daycares have been operating since the very beginning, and those have all been successful. And I think, you know, it's really turned out that there's a lot of peer-reviewed international research showing that children really are not transmitters of the virus. And so I think, you know, the real issue, and I certainly applaud your focus on the health of teachers and supporting teachers, but the teachers are going back in the building, regardless of the plan, the teachers are going back. And so I do think, you know, protecting the teachers, making sure that they have the proper PPE and all of the other support that they have, I think is going to be critical. But I do want to, you know, really have those of you who are teachers think in your heart, and I think you know that students really should be in school, and that is the best place for them. You can look on your own website and look at the way the school day is going to be arranged for elementary children. You know, I'm a big proponent of science education. I was really concerned to see that the only time there's any direct instruction for science is during the 20 minutes check-in at the morning and the 20-minute check-in in the afternoon. Otherwise, they are on Canvas for all their learning in science. And Canvas, you know, is really a code word for watching a video. So I just really think, while that could be something that could work for high school and high school students and college students, I really don't think for elementary and middle school that's right. So there's no, as you said earlier today, there's no easy answer, there's no clear answer, but I really implore you to stick with your plan. I think parents have been making their own plans based on the decision that you made 2 weeks ago, And so I ask you to stick with that. You know, when I was here before, I asked for the 5-day. Now I'm just internally grateful that you're keeping with the hybrid plan. So good luck. I know you're going to need a lot of luck, but it's hard work, but it's really worth it because it's what's best for our children. Thank you.
Next is Amy Krebs.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight to listen to the parents. My name is Amy Krebs, and I have 3 boys, 2 at Kerrs Mill and 1 at Crestview Middle. I am also an educator, a certified speech-language pathologist. I was an SLP at Francis House School District for 8 years, and I also worked for First Step serving the birth to 3 population. I'm here tonight to advocate for my children and all other children in the Rockwood School District. I would like to list many reasons as to why students need to attend school in person. Remote learning is not age appropriate for younger children. Expecting a kindergartner through 3rd grade to sit behind a computer is extremely difficult and next to impossible. Direct assistance and monitoring by an adult is a must. Every day was a fight with my kids, sitting in front of the computer with their mom hovering over them. Students learn best through the 4 main modalities of learning: kinesthetic, visual, auditory, and tactile. Starting a new school year, 100% remote does not allow for the young child to make any connection with the teacher or peers. Therefore, motivation to learn will be absent in this environment. Number 2, one of my sons is on a 504. His needs are not being met through the 100% remote learning plan. His reading program involves kinesthetic, visual, auditory, tactile modalities to grasp the ability to read. His reading program also can only be taught through a trained reading specialist. I'm not trained to help him with this service. 100% remote learning is not addressing Section 504 of the IDEA Act, which is free appropriate public education. Number 3, trying to do this under 3 minutes. If schools close, then children may no longer have that sense of structure and stimulation that is provided by the environment and will have less opportunity to be with their friends and get that social support that's essential for good mental well-being. Suicide numbers in older children are higher than COVID death numbers. Depression is also a concern in many students. Number 4, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Federation of Teachers, National Education Association, the School Superintendents Association joined together in D.C. this past July 10th. Based upon this meeting, all groups agree that educators and pediatricians share the goal of children returning safely to schools this fall. Our organizations are committed to doing everything we can so that all students have the opportunity to safely resume in-person learning. They go on to say, we recognize that children learn best when physically present in the classroom, but children get much more than academics at school. They also learn social and emotional skills at school, get healthy meals and exercise, mental health support, and other services that cannot be easily replicated online. Schools also play a critical role in addressing racial and social inequity. Our nation's response to COVID-19 has laid bare inequities and consequences for children that must be addressed. This pandemic is especially hard on families who rely on school lunches, have children with disabilities, or lack access to internet or health care. Number 5, Redfield from CDC stated, if you do 5 things, we can accomplish as much as we did as shutting down the nation. The face masks, the social distancing, the hand hygiene, staying smart about gathering, and staying out of crowded bars and restaurants. If we do these 5 things, we can get the same bang for the buck as if we shut the entire economy down. Oh, can I go a little bit longer? Like 1 more minute?
Finish your sentence.
Oh. Number 6, education is a civil right. The superintendent from Jennings, Dr. McCoy, said it best, it's up to the informed leaders to blaze new paths, boldly defend, and take risks to defend that right. If we educators are paid tax dollars, then we have an obligation to be servant leaders. I pay my taxes and I am paying your salaries. Options need to be available to us. If the public schools are not able to address my children's education, then give me back my money so that I can find someone else to educate my children. Teachers are essential workers. Our children are the future. And if you're looking for a speech-language pathologist or anyone to help out with teaching, or I'm available. I'll take it on. I don't mind. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Megan Merkel.
Hi, thank you. My name is Megan Merkel. This is my husband, Steve Merkel, and we're here as parents of 2 children in the Rockwood School District and also as taxpayers. Here to strongly urge you to reconsider the return to school options for the fall, include a 5-day full-time in-person option for our children. I was encouraged, and I understand that 74% of parents who returned the return to school survey indicated they preferred a 5-day in-class option. However, since that ask has not been met, I'm asking the board why they're not listening to the parents and what is influencing this decision instead. Because I'm going to quote from the CDC themselves. They've published an article of the importance of returning to schools on July 23rd, where they state, the best available evidence indicates if children become infected with COVID-19, they're far less likely to suffer symptoms, and the known death rate is less than 0.1%. However, the harms attributed to closing our schools on the social, emotional, and behavioral health, economic well-being, and academic achievement of our children in both the short and the long term are well known and very significant. The CDC also states that we know a child, aside from a child's home, there's no other setting in their life more influential than the health and well-being found at school. The school environment provides educational instruction, supports social and emotional development, creates a safe environment, addresses any nutritional concerns, and also facilitates physical activity in their life. They're not the only relevant organization that has weighed in on this topic. As you have heard this evening as well, the Academy of Pediatrics, the American Federation of Teachers, the National Education Association, and the AASA have all weighed in and encouraged an in-classroom return for our students in the fall. In closing, I would like to quote the American Academy of Pediatrics that states, returning to school is important for the healthy development and well-being of our children, but we must pursue a reopening way that is safe for all students, teacher, and staff. It should be based on science and not on politics. I'm asking the Rockwood School Board to follow these published agency guidelines and consider a 5-day in-class option for our children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Derek Pratt.
Evening. By the way, I trimmed up for you. First of all, I got to say I don't envy any of you at all. Dr. Miles and I have had many conversations either on the phone or in person. He still hasn't given me the selfie that I was asking for, but you know, we just can't get it 6 feet apart correctly with a selfie. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to give you figures. I'm not going to plead to you on the CDC or anything else like that, because I'm assuming that all the rest of them have done this so far. We've also talked to you about a month ago, and we do thank you for your time. So what my questions are to you as the Board of Aldermen, or the Board of Education, I said, what is the threshold? So right now we are giving a 2-3 option. I will tell you that I have spoken with other superintendents, just like Dr. Miles has. I spoke with the superintendent of the Francis House School District. Right now, today, as of today, they have 2 options. They have a 5-day option as of right now, and this could change. They are going to start school on a 5-day option with the hybrid option as the backup, and then can go to the online if necessary. Option 2, which you guys have also have the same secondary option, is the virtual. So the numbers that you guys got by the 31st, I believe it was 71% that came back and gave you the numbers. It said 71% of the 21,000 students that are in the Rockwood School District have said that we want to be in school. The parents have told you this. So even at a hybrid option, you have roughly about 15,000 students that want to be in school. I don't have to tell you as educators or even parents how important school is. I spoke with the lady with the special school district, and I can speak upon behalf of my child. She's going into 6th grade. She has a reading IEP. I asked her, how is my daughter's school going to look? Her response to me was, when she's in school the 2 days, she will get the necessary time that she needs in that classroom. They will have an actual teacher, secondary teacher, working with her. I said, but what about the other days? She said, well, we have 2 options for you. You can have the option of learning online. I'm sorry, but that's not an option because my 11-year-old, said no. So I have to figure out with 3 children how to make an arrangement to bring my daughter up to LaSalle to get her special school district needs. So in closing, I would like to say one thing: if we can start on a 5-day, just like different school districts that are similar to us, I know we can't compare them because size is always something. But these school districts have already got this nailed down, to where they're starting already at a 5-day and adjusting if need be. So again, if we can do that, they already have a model to work with. Make a phone call. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Robert Richmond.
Likewise, at the time I was sitting here, I saw all sorts of statistics that reference the things I was going to say about CDC, the various organizations that say the kids should be back in school. You've heard it. If you've paid attention, you've seen it. They're not being kept at school because the parents don't want them. My kids don't even like going to school and they want to be in school. So the kids, the parents want them to be there. The safety is not a thing. Less than 300 people under the age of 25 in the whole country have died of this. It's not a big thing for school-age children. So if it's not the parents, it's not the kids, it's not the safety, we don't know what's controlling this, why we're not going. We can't get criteria on, okay, well, if this happens, then we go back to 5 days. I've emailed each of you here. I got 2 responses. Neither of them addressed the questions I was asking, but I don't know what to do as a parent. I moved here because this is a good school district, or it was a good school district. I moved here so I didn't have to send my kids to CBC or SLU or to Smith, where they're going to school now. My kids sit at home, they wave their hand at the computer, they're not learning what they need to know. They're going to be taking the ACT, they're going to be trying to get into colleges with these kids that are 5 days, learning more than they're learning. This is a big deal.
Rand Power.
We moved to the Rockwood School District about a year ago from the City of St. Louis schools in seeking the best education for our son, and it was a choice between that or choosing private schools. And we didn't want to choose a private school, so we chose instead to spend our money on a better school district. And then spring happened. And this has been the longest spring break in history, and my soon-to-be 5th grader cannot wait to get back into the classroom, which is saying something. And everybody's already talked about the importance of 5 days a week school as spoken by the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics. We are trying to understand what measures have to be in place for the kids to be back in school, because we're just not hearing that. Virtual school is just giving my kid more screen time. I don't need him to have more screen time. I need him to have more time with other kids, to learn to socialize. I need him to be with his teacher so he can gain a relationship with that teacher that you're not going to be able to gain over a computer screen. If computer school was the way to go, we would turn on Sesame Street or YouTube and we would homeschool. But my husband and I both chose to have a profession, and my son would like to be able to go to school in person so that he can be prepared to have a profession when he's done. Summer camps have run this summer without having any trouble. He's been able to go to summer camp. We have had no problems with any kids or counselors getting sick. And so I feel that it's been told to us by the CDC that children are not heavy spreaders of the virus. The teachers are not going to be less safe than the counselors who have been at the camps all summer long. So I don't understand why that would be a reason to not go back to 5 days. Teachers are essential workers, and I would just ask, please, to let our kids go back to being at some semblance of normal. Again, this has been the longest spring break in history, and we need to be back in school in seat with friends and teachers, and to move forward and get out of the fear that we're living in. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Winters.
thank you. So I have a daughter at Rockwood Summit who's in the 11th grade, and 2 days a week of instruction is just not sufficient. If I were to send my daughter to school last year, only 2 days a week, I would be turned into the state for educational neglect, but it's okay for the school district to decide to only teach her 2 days a week. That's just not right. And the way that the schedules are set up for the high school, with teaching half of the classes one quarter, and then half of the classes another quarter. I mean, let's say that she has pre-calculus coming up the first quarter, and then she's going to have an entire quarter of something else, but not pre-calculus, and then the third quarter she'll go back to taking pre-calculus again. I mean, what kind of that doesn't make sense to take off a whole bunch of time in the middle. I mean, it's been 4 months since she's had math, and she went and took the ACT that was supposed to be in April, that got postponed to May, that got postponed to June, that got postponed to July, and her math scores went down substantially without having instruction for 4 months. So it's just going to be very similar in a situation where you only have half of your instruction. So I would like to know exactly what it is they're going to be doing the other 2 days of the week that they're not in school. Is it just homework that's going to be done? Because I've had, there's been some talk of children who are, 16 getting jobs and working at a job and, just like a summer job the rest of the time. I mean, children really need 5 days of education, of instruction, not just a couple of days to do homework and a couple of days of instruction. So, and I just wanted to say too that, this is just not going to prepare them for the ACT as well, as if they were getting 5 days of rigorous instruction throughout the entire school year. So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Next up, we have Superintendent and Board comments. And first, Dr. Miles, I realized I didn't even say that. I'm sorry.
Right, I was waiting
I'm in
for
the
my cue.
zone.
Thank you. So to begin this evening, I'm pleased to announce the hiring of Lauren Haar as the new interim administrative intern at Utah Valley Elementary School. Lauren has been a Rockwood employee since 2007, starting as a classroom assistant at Eureka Elementary School before becoming a 3rd and 4th grade teacher at Eureka and Kellison Elementary for the next 10 years. Since 2017, Lauren has worked as a math instructional coach for 3rd through 5th graders in the district, a role in which she was responsible for working with classroom teachers and assisting with the full implementation of the district's new math program. Lauren earned her Bachelor of Science in Education from Missouri State University and her Master of Science in Education from Southwest Baptist University. Congratulations, Lauren, on your new role within Rockwood. We as a district look forward to continuing to benefit from your talents at Utah Valley. And is Lauren here this evening? Congratulations, Lauren. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome 2 retired Rockwood employees who will be working with us on a temporary basis back to the district. Eric Graham will serve as a temporary assistant principal at Rockwood Summit High School, and Kathy Orta will serve as a temporary substitute administrator in the district communications department. So we want to say welcome back to Eric and Kathy. Continuing with the start of the new school year just around the corner, Rockwood administrators gather at Lafayette High School for the annual Summer Administrators Conference on July 30th. We heard presentations on educational equity from leading experts in the field and collaborated in school and departmental groups on goals still left to accomplish before the first day of school, August 24th. Mask wearing, social distancing, and other health and safety guidelines were observed throughout the day. And I'd like to thank our professional learning department for organizing a day filled with impactful presentations and team building opportunities. It was a tremendous opportunity to convene and reinforce our shared sense of purpose heading into the year. And after more than 20 years of serving Rockwood, the Drug Free Coalition has changed its name to Community Partners in Prevention. Though its name has changed, the group's mission remains the same, providing leadership, education, and resources to prevent and address substance use among youth. Community Partners in Prevention is composed of an executive board and a coalition of community members. They work within the Rockwood Student Services Department to educate students on how to make healthy choices, educate parents on talking to their students about drugs and alcohol, and support students in addressing use within their schools. Parents, students, staff, and community members are invited to attend meetings on the second Thursday of each month at 3:45 p.m. Next, a fully operational 160 square foot tiny house built by the Rockwood Summit Geometry and Construction students has been up for auction over the past few weeks. The students built the home in a way that allows it to be mobile so it can be transported from site to site on a trailer and has water and electric hookups for use at campsites. The house exceeds the specifications necessary for approval by the Tiny House Certification Agency, NOAA. Tiny house construction is one of the staple projects of the Rockwood GIC curriculum, which challenges students to use their math skills for real-life applications. Proceeds from the sale of this house will go back into the GIC program. Now Rockwood Summit students and teachers have the floor plans and know-how necessary to start on another tiny house. And finally tonight, I'd like to extend my congratulations to Crestview Middle School student Alice Liu, who recently earned first place in the state and second place nationally in the Invest Right essay contest. The contest serves as a culminating activity for students who play the stock market game, an online simulation of the global capital markets. Alice has also represented Rockwood at the Scripps National Spelling Bee. So we wanted to say congratulations to Alice. This evening. Certainly this has been an incredibly challenging environment for us all. There are so many perspectives about the approach that we should be taking. And I know that I personally have received so many comments and pieces of feedback from students, from our parents, from staff members, community members, medical professionals, the St. Louis County Department of Public Health. There's one common theme. We all care about our children. And we all care about the educational services that we provide them, without a doubt. I think we've probably all lost a lot of sleep over contemplating these issues, and we frequently have considered the guidance from the CDC, local and regional medical professionals in this endeavor. We live in an area where there is significant concern over the spread of the virus. And I will tell you, I have had many conversations with, individual conversations in person with parents. It has been our priority, our goal throughout this entire process to get our children back to school 5 days per week. The challenge before us is that none of us have control over the spread of this virus. We cannot control this pandemic. I wish I had control over it, because I would snap my fingers and it would go away immediately. I'm concerned with the health and safety of our children. While I'd like to believe I know all there is to know about this virus, I do not. Nor do I believe all of our medical professionals know everything about the virus. We've received communication from the St. Louis County Department of Public Health recommending that we begin the year as virtually as possible. In addition to the comments tonight, most of the comments this evening were about getting our children back to school 5 days. Again, that remains our hope. The challenge is the environment that we are in. Once we received registration numbers, registration requests from our families. 71% of our families indicated that they would prefer to return in a hybrid model. Our principals began to work feverishly on putting together a hybrid model. What we have discovered in that process of trying to schedule a hybrid model are the significant logistical challenges related with scheduling, really, in essence, 3 new schools: an online elementary school, an online middle school, and an online high school. There are students and parents beyond the individuals that spoke today that are fearful, that are concerned with health and safety. I have heard directly from staff members, as I know you have. We have to consider all of the elements within our plan. So as I have considered all of the information available to us, based upon the feedback that I've received from all of those sources and a variety of stakeholders, again, our priority remains to get our children back to school 5 days. I would ask the board this evening to entertain a motion to move us to an all-virtual environment, at least until the beginning of first quarter. It is a disappointment to make that recommendation for you to consider. But based upon all of the information that I have obtained, I think that is the most appropriate course forward.
To entertain a motion.
Dr. Miles, we know that these are no easy decisions. We're not going to make every stakeholder in this district happy overnight, but the safety of our children, the safety of our staff, the safety of our administrators is utmost at this time. And it's not an easy decision for us, but I do support your motion.
But I would just also say, as we think about the educational services that we provide, our parents and children have come to expect high-quality educational services. Some of the feedback that we've received putting together that hybrid model, we feel as if we are better able to provide that high-quality instructional platform with a consistent effort forward.
I think talking to Dr. Willard tonight, again, to reiterate, this will be different than the spring. It will not be just sitting before a computer for 6 hours. There's interaction, there's engagement, there's direct instruction for our students. So it's the most viable for them in terms of in continuing their education safely at this time.
A motion? Anyone?
I so
have
moved.
some further discussion. Do we have a second? Any other discussion?
Well, I struggle with this, just like everybody else in this room has struggled, just like the superintendent's cabinet has struggled, just like the parents are struggling, the teachers are struggling, and in my heart and in my soul, I care about, I have a sister that's a teacher, and she's looking forward to go back to the classroom because her school district is. And I just think that if the best course of action is either we continue the way forward with hybrid, or we delay opening the schools until Labor Day to see where this downward trend is leading us. That is what I have to say.
I would just like to say that this is definitely not an easy decision. This is nothing that any of us wanted to hear tonight. I know the 7 of us were really hopeful that we could pull this off. And I know logistically, from what you've said, it sounds like it's just not doable at this moment, and that is not because no one tried. That is definitely not the case. I know everyone here tried. We have an amazing staff. Excuse me. I think what I would like to do now is just remind everyone in this room, the public. I've heard so many stories from people. This is dividing families. This is dividing neighbors. This is dividing friends. We all need to think about being kind to one another, remembering what will get us out of this mess, and all work together to remind one another to be kind and to get through this fast, and let's get to 5 days. That's what everyone needs to think about. Focus on that, be kind, and do your part to get us through this.
Right now, I'm feeling a sense of loss and grieving, just like I felt when I realized that the 5 days was not going to be a viable option. Grieving for the kids, the families, you know, and the staff, because they want to be back into the classroom as well. Such a difficult decision, and I'm angry, and I'm sad, and like Randy said, I look at people and I'm thinking, you know, to wear a mask, stay out of the bars, you know, all that kind of stuff, because until our community does that, we're not going to be able to move forward. So I think it's incumbent upon us to make our community as safe as possible. Let's get back to 5 days as soon as possible, you know, and whenever, and I urge Dr. Miles and the administrators to make that happen as quickly as possible, because we, in our hearts, kids need to be back in school 5 days. Staff want to be back in school 5 days. So let's rally as a community and let's do it.
I have three grandchildren in the Rockwood School District attending, and a daughter that works in the Rockwood School District. So I'm very attuned to this whole situation. I was principal at Eureka High School for 7 years and knew Sandy Carney real well. Sandy was my lead counselor for most of the years I was there, and Sandy died in the spring. I do not want to be on this Board of Education and have to face that again because we decided to do something like go to school 2 days a week or even 5 days a week when we can go virtual and the exact same curriculum and the same learning opportunities. I'll stand by that. Thank you.
Jamie, do you have anything to add?
I just want to say that I agree with the comments that have made so far, Lynn. I feel like this has been a process for months.
I'm going to say that I've been on the school board for 7 years. I'm very proud to be a Rockwood community member. I taught in this district. My boys graduated from Rockwood Summit. And if you think for 1 minute the 7 of us haven't struggled immensely through this, with hate coming from emails, with support coming from emails, people that we thought would support us turning on us, the best days on this board have been giving both my sons their graduation diplomas. The worst day on the board is this day right here. So I would appreciate, once we make this motion and we vote, for everyone in our community to stop acting inappropriately and please support each other. Because if you don't see how painful this is for all of us right here, then you don't understand what we're trying to do. So the motion is for the Rockwood School District to go virtual starting on August 24th. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
No.
That passes. Next up, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda items as submitted.
Moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? That passes. Next, we have some agenda items. The first one is a motion that the Board of Education approve 5 days in school, full at home online program, and safety precautions for the 2020-2021 school year. There's no motion. We'll move on. Next is 9.02, adoption of Board of Education meeting minutes. Dr. Miles? We have a calendar in front of us for the 2021-22 school year.
Do indeed. It is in many ways very similar to prior year calendars with 2 board meetings most months. I just want to give kudos to Janet Sadowski for her work and putting this together. So we provide this evening for your consideration as we look to the 2021-2022 school year. Janet, anything to add related to details that I haven't provided?
I didn't ask for a motion, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So the motion is to approve the Board of Education meeting calendar for August through December 2021 and January through July 2022.
Move.
We have a motion, a second.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't have anything to add. It follows our usual first and third Thursdays, with the exception of the extra meeting in September for the tax hearing, the one meeting we have in January because of the holiday break, and June we went to the second and fourth because of possible graduation dates that would fall over the first week of June.
Only one meeting.
That's only one meeting in July.
Any other questions, discussion? So the motion is to approve the Board of Education meeting calendar for August through December 2021 and January through July 2022. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, that passes. Next, we have a COPE update, and Randy,
First or?
whatever you want to do.
Okay.
It's your
Well,
update.
So, Lynn, Jamie, and I met last Monday to discuss. We've obviously been receiving a lot of feedback, and as the COPE committee, part of our duties are to deal with community outreach. That's part of what COPE stands for. We felt that communication was, I don't want to say lacking, but people were missing some parts of information, whether it be certain discussions or certain information. So we worked together with the communications department and Dr. Miles to come up with some plans for what we needed to deliver to the community and how we needed to deliver that to the community. We came up with a few good plans for that, and there should be some good videos coming out from this discussion. I also have a letter that we've kind of put together, a message from the Board of Education, us as 7 individuals as a whole. And I'd like to read that to you if I could. As your Rockwood Board of Education, we understand that it is our responsibility to serve our school community. These last few months have been more than challenging as the COVID-19 virus swept through our world, our nation, our state, and St. Louis County. We've experienced changes to our way of life. Each day brings about various reactions and responses to this global pandemic. We want to reassure you that your school board is listening, and we are. We are listening to our parents, and we understand the hardship it can be for families as we navigate this new educational environment. We understand that because we are parents and grandparents too. We are listening to our teachers and staff. We know their concerns about the safety of our schools and health of loved ones. We understand. We are frustrated with the impact of this pandemic on our schools. We are teachers too. We are listening to our community with recommendations for school districts to provide virtual education to the start of the school year to minimize the spread of the virus. We understand because we are community members too. There are many voices and there are no easy answers. We have spent many sleepless nights struggling to find a way to serve all the needs within our school community. We want you to know that when the school board members are elected to serve, each member takes an oath to be an educational advocate for our community's youth. During our time on the school board, we listen, we learn, and we consider every voice. Ultimately, we make what we feel is the best decision to move forward. These difficult times can bring out frustration, division, and confusion. We sincerely understand these reactions. We ask that in our relationships with each other, that we extend kindness. It is clear we must all be flexible and patient during these historic times. Thank you.
So 9:04, proposed agenda for the August 20th, 2020 Board of Education meeting. And I'm assuming that will be a virtual meeting, Zoom meeting, correct?
Don't know, we haven't talked about it.
Okay, we can talk about it. 10.01, future agenda presentations and events to attend. Make sure you check the Board of Education Google Calendar for upcoming events in the district. Unless there's anything else, we need to go back into closed for a couple things. Good, Janet? All right. Thank you.